We're going to get right into it, and I'm going to turn for opening review to Tom.
All right. I actually first saw this movie a couple years ago. I saw it at the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it. One of the issues I had with it was that I couldn't understand like half the dialogue. And I thought that was just because of where I was sitting in the theater, that the sound wasn't reaching me somehow. But I watched it again, and I realized that it's just because a lot of the dialogue is really, like some of it's the accents and some of it's just like a really weird, like the way people interact with each other. It's also very, it's almost like it's just happening and you're hearing snippets of conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have to, like if you're not paying attention, you miss things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happened. But other than that, like everything else about this movie is pretty amazing. Like, I mean, if we're talking about visually striking, it's really, really awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way. I wanted to turn on subtitles to try to. I wish I could have, because I felt like I didn't know what was going on at some points, and maybe that's part of the field. Maybe that's part of the intent here, where this person is talking to a child and you don't really understand what she's saying, or maybe you see snippets of a conversation with Lee Pace and his doctors or lawyers or whoever, and you kind of hear some things, but not really. And honestly, I've only caught like a few words during some of their conversations. Like I caught, something about leaving the money to someone, something about suicide, something about letting her go. Mm-hmm. So like I only catch like just enough to kind of get an idea of what's happening. But I'm like, oh wow, I have to watch this again just to get a fuller appreciation of the movie. But even without a full understanding, I felt like it was still an enjoyable.
Did you get the sense that the scenes between Lee Pace and the little girl, what's her name? Katinka Utaru, the actress, that she didn't really know a lot of her lines very well, and he was kind of like leading her.
Oh, really?
Did you get that sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Almost like an improvised kind of feel between the two.
I got the sense that she was playing a child, like which a lot of times you talk to a young child. I really appreciated her performance in that. He would have to ask her questions again. Hey, what did you tell me? Are you telling me the truth? It felt like it didn't feel like this overly polished Hollywood relationship between adult and child, where the child is naturally precocious or overly kind of adorable.
Yeah.
When children speak, a lot of times you're not exactly sure what they're saying.
So especially that "Are you trying to save my soul?" scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was such a great scene.
Yeah.
No, it was. I don't think Tom's critiquing it, saying it's bad.
No, I'm not objecting. I'm just commenting because it was so good.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoyed it because it felt like such a real adult to child conversation. And maybe you're right. Maybe it was leading her on.
And this is her second language too.
Okay.
No, it's a credit to Lee Pace as an actor that he was able to sit there and lead her and stay in character.
Yeah, I'm not objecting. I was just very excited because he mentioned that scene. That was
okay.
A lot
I
of
really
those,
liked it.
A lot of those scenes were shot with the camera hidden so that she didn't even know she was being filmed.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Actually, she didn't even. She thought he was actually an actual paraplegic.
Wow.
If you read up on this, some of the stuff borders on like child abuse because they like convinced her a lot of the stuff was real.
Oh.
And it's
he actually let most of the crew believe that he was paraplegic as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I was just doing the reading. It was definitely much less fluid.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I think
the
first time I saw it, that's one of the problems I had with it. Is it's the transitions aren't so fluid; they're very jarring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a negative. I think it's more of a challenge to the viewer.
Yeah.
Rather than
it challenged me.
Rather than something that detracts from the quality of the movie.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Princess Bride uses the same like sharp,
that's true.
jarring transition where you're like, oh, you completely forgot about the narrative, the overlying narrative.
Yep.
And you're pulled back into this little kid's room, and it's does the same thing, and I actually like it.
Yeah. I actually liked it too. I found it to be somewhat jarring, but at the same time, I felt like the main movie was between this guy and this kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that the fantasy was you know, they're nice little snippets, but that wasn't the main focus for me. Like, I didn't really care that much about this bandit trying to get this guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was fun. It was extra.
Right.
But I didn't when it went back to reality. Like, I was like, all right, let's continue this.
Yeah.
That's another thing, is that the fantasy story has no sense of structure or logic or anything.
Yeah.
And it can just change on a whim.
Right.
Yeah.
And things
I thought he
like
was English. No,
there's no plot points that stick together. Like,
Mm-hmm.
motivations change, and like where they are and why they're doing what they're doing changes like on a minute by minute basis in the fantasy, which I had a really hard time with. But because it's him making up the story as he goes, and then it's getting filtered through her imagination, it makes sense that it would come out that way.
Yeah.
And that's a lot different than The Princess Bride. Like, I think that's why the fantasy in The Fall feeds the actual narrative, which is the reality narrative, whereas in The Princess Bride, it's the main fantasy narrative is the main narrative.
Is the main narrative, yeah. There's not much to that overlying story in the Princess Bride. There's really not. Yeah. It's an excuse to tell a story.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. No, step in and out of the fantasy.
Never-ending Story is a decent one, because you see it go back and forth, and
then it starts coming to get blending together.
Yeah. And that
was one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even though that there are transitions there, I think those are also somewhat kind of jarring too, especially as they come closer and closer together. You know,
transitions between fantasy and reality are really, really hard to do. I think Pan's Labyrinth does it really well, to the extent of where you start to question whether or not this stuff is actually occurring.
Yeah.
You know.
In that movie, you want it to be real.
Yeah, you really want it to be real. You want to take her out of that reality.
She's in this horrible situation, and when she's murdered, you know, and she goes to this place where she's with her family again, and you want that to be real. It's The Fall. The Fall versus Hunt for Red October.
Hunt for Red October is one of those films that, like, its classic status just kind of makes it hard to vote against every time. But I keep finding it falling farther and farther down. Because
I know it's important, and I enjoyed it when I watch it, but I never think about it.
Yeah.
Ever.
In the end, it's a thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I say that with, like, derision.
Yeah. I never think, wow, Hunt for Red October did that really well.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it was boring. It was so boring. But I also saw it, like, when it come out.
1990.
I saw it in 1990, and that was it. I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old. I watched it.
Actually, I agree, because when I was a kid, I was bored with the middle. Like, almost all the way through the middle, I was bored. Yeah. I watched it again a few years ago, and it was amazing. Yeah, I'm sure there's got to be something good about it. Yeah. It has flaws, no doubt, but but I'm still going to vote The Fall. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Really? Yeah.
I love naked tiny guy jumps out on your face and starts hitting you.